which must take the place of the exhaustive theater of the realistic conventions if the theater is to resume vitality as a part of our culture. The screen device. There is only one important difference between the original and the acting version of the play, and that is the omission in the latter of the device that I tentatively included in my original script. This device was the use of a screen on which were projected magic lantern slides bearing images or titles. I do not regret the omission of this device from the original Broadway production. The extraordinary power of Miss Taylor's performance made it suitable to the utmost simplicity in a physical production. But I think it may be interesting to some readers to see how the device was conceived. So I'm putting it into the published manuscript. These images and legends projected from behind were cast on a section of wall between the front room and the dining room areas, which should be indistinguishable from the rest when not in use. The purpose of this will probably be apparent. It is to give accent to certain values of each scene. Each scene contains a particular point or several, which is structurally the most important. In an episodic play such as this, the basic structure or narrative line may be obscured from the audience. The effect may seem fragmentary rather than architectural. This may not be the fault of the play so much as lack of attention in the audience. The legend or image upon the screen will strengthen the effect of what is merely illusion, and the writing in yellow, and allow the primary point to be made more simply and lightly than if the entire responsibility were on the spoken line. Aside from this structural value, I think the screen will have a definite emotional appeal, less definable, but just as important. An imaginative producer or director may invent many other uses for this device than those indicated in the present script. In fact, the possibilities of the device seem much larger to me than the instance of this play can possibly utilize.
Music. Another extra literary accent in this play is provided by the use of music. A single recurring tune, the glass Menagerie, is used to give emotional emphasis to suitable passages. This tune is like circus music, not when you're on the grounds or in the immediate vicinity of the parade, but when you're at some distance and very likely thinking of something else. It seems under those circumstances to continue almost interminably, and it weaves in and out of your preoccupied consciousness. Then it is the lightest, most delicate music in the world, and perhaps the saddest. It expresses the surface vivacity of life with underlying strain of immutable and inexpressible sorrow. When you look at a piece of delicately spun glass, you think of two things: how beautiful it is and how easily it can be broken. Both of those ideas should be woven into the recurring tune, which dips in and out of the play as if it were carried on a line that changes. It serves as a thread of connection and illusion between the narrator and his separate point in time and space and the subject of his story. Between each episode, it returns as reference to the emotion nostalgia and is the first condition of the play. It is primarily Laura's music and therefore comes out most clearly when the play focuses upon her and the lovely fragility of glass, which is her. The lighting. The lighting in the play is not realistic. In keeping with the atmosphere of memory, the stage is dim. Shafts of light are focused on selected areas or actors, sometimes in contradistinction to what is the apparent center. For instance, in the crawl scene between Tom and Amanda, in which Laura has no active part, the clearest pool of light is on her figure. This is also true of the supper scene, when her silent figure on the sofa should remain the visual center. The light upon Laura should be distinct from the others, having a peculiar pristine clarity such as light used in early religious portraits of female saints or Madonnas. A certain correspondence to light in religious paintings such as El Greco's, where the figures are radiant in atmosphere that is relatively dusky, could be effectively used throughout the play. It will also permit a more effective use of the screen. A free, imaginative use of light can be of enormous value in giving a mobile, plastic quality to plays of more or less static nature. Tennessee.
Excellent.
Okay. The Wingfield apartment is in the rear of the building, one of those vast, hive-like conglomerations of cellular living units that flower as warty growths in overcrowded urban centers of lower middle-class population and are symptomatic of the impulse of this largest and fundamentally enslaved section of American society to avoid fluidity and differentiation and to exist and function as one interfused mass of automatism. The apartment faces an alley and is entered by a fire escape, a structure whose name is a touch of accidental poetic truth. For all of these huge buildings are always burning with the slow and implacable fires of human desperation. The fire escape is part of what we see, that is, the landing of it and steps descending from it. The scene is memory and is therefore non-realistic. Memory takes a lot of poetic license. It omits some details, others are exaggerated, according to the emotional value of the articles it touches, for memory is seated predominantly in the heart. The interior is therefore rather dim and poetic. At the rise of the curtain, the audience is faced with the dark, grim rear wall of the Wingfield tenement. This building is flanked on both sides by dark, narrow alleys which run into murky canyons of tangled clotheslines, garbage cans, and the sinister latticework of neighboring fire escapes. It is up and down these side alleys that exterior entrances and exits are made during the play. At the end of Tom's opening commentary, the dark tenement wall slowly becomes transparent and reveals the interior of the ground floor Wingfield apartment. Nearest the audience is the living room, which also serves as a sleeping room for Laura, the sofa unfolding to make her bed. Just beyond, separated from the living room by a wide arc or second proscenium, with transparent faded portieres or second curtain, is the dining room. In an old-fashioned whatnot in the living room are seen scores of transparent glass animals. A blown-up phonograph of the father hangs on the wall of the living room, to the left of the archway. It is the face of a very handsome young man in a doughboy's First World War cap. He is gallantly smiling, ineluctably smiling, as if to say, I will be smiling forever. Also hanging on the wall near the photograph are a typewriter keyboard chart and a Gregg shorthand diagram. An upright typewriter on a small table stands beneath the charts. The audience hears and sees the opening scene in the dining room through both the transparent fourth wall of the building and the transparent gauze portieres of the dining room arc. It is during this revealing scene that the fourth wall slowly ascends out of sight. This transparent exterior wall is not brought down again until the very end of the play, during Tom's final speech. The narrator is an undisguised convention of the play. He takes whatever license or dramatic convention is convenient to his purposes. Tom enters, dressed as a merchant sailor, and strolls across to the fire escape. There he stops and lights a cigarette. He addresses the audience.
Yes, I have tricks in my pocket. I have things up my sleeve. But I am the opposite of a stage magician. He gives you illusion that has the appearance of truth. I give you truth in the pleasant disguise of illusion. To begin with, I turn back time. I reverse it to that quaint period, the 30s, when the huge middle class of America was matriculating in a school for the blind. Their eyes had failed them, or they had failed their eyes, and so they were having their fingers pressed forcibly down on the fiery braille alphabet of a dissolving economy. In Spain, there was revolution. Here there was only shouting and confusion. In Spain, there was Guernica. Here, there were disturbances of labor, sometimes pretty violent, in otherwise peaceful cities such as Chicago, Cleveland, and St. Louis. This is the social background of the play.
Music begins to play.
The play is a memory. Being a memory play, it is dimly lighted, it is sentimental, it is not realistic. In memory, everything seems to happen to music. That explains the fiddle and the wings. I am the narrator of the play, and also a character in it. The other characters are my mother, Amanda, my sister Laura, and a gentleman caller who appears in the final scenes. He is the most realistic character in the play, being an emissary from a world of reality that we were somehow set apart from. But since I have a poet's weakness for symbols, I am using this character also as a symbol. He is the long-delayed but always expected something what we live for. There's a fifth character in the play who doesn't appear except in the larger-than-life size photograph over the mantel. This is our father who left us a long time ago. He was a telephone man who fell in love with long distances. He gave up his job with the telephone company and skipped the light fantastic out of town. The last we heard of him was a picture postcard from Mazatlan on the Pacific coast of Mexico containing a message of the two words, hello, goodbye, and no address. I think the rest of the play will explain itself.
Amanda's voice becomes audible from the 40X. Legend on screen from Song